Commissioner Thate,
Here.
Commissioner Ansari,
Here.
Commissioner Batts.
I'm here.
Commissioner Batts, I saw you briefly.
Can you see me now? I'm
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Campbell,
I'm here.
Commissioner Coleman,
Here.
and Commissioner Bowers.
Here.
Okay, everybody is here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Would you please introduce the meeting with the normal finding?
Yes, this meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order 16 issued by the Governor of Tennessee, which allows during this state of emergency for meetings of local governmental agencies to be held virtually. The meeting, the public has been noticed and has been invited to participate in the meeting. The meeting will be for the purpose of conducting essential business of the agency. And lastly, the meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing by the public on YouTube. With that, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon, and commissioners and all those who are participating today. We're greatly honored to have present our Housing and Urban Development Regional Administrator, Denise Cleveland-Liggett, who has asked to address this agency. And for the purpose of introducing her, I am pleased to ask our Executive Director, Jim Harbison, to do just that.
Good morning. It's my privilege really to introduce someone I've gotten to know over the last couple of years, become a really good friend. Certainly is a great supporter and advocate for Nashville within HUD. Denise Cleveland-Liggett is the Southeast Region Administrator of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is the largest in the nation. Based in Atlanta, she oversees HUD, all program and operations in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, which has the second largest public housing portfolio in the country. The Southeast region has 12 field offices, roughly 840 employees. As a regional administrator, she oversees and coordinates all funding, community development funding over $519 million, multifamily public housing funding of $5.3 billion, and single-family housing insurance in force for over $236 billion across the Southeast region. Prior to assuming her duties as the HUD Regional Board Administrator, Ms. Cleveland-Liggett garnered over 30 years of combined leadership and legal experience in both public and private sectors, and was actively involved in business and community in Atlanta. An accomplished corporate attorney, she represents several healthcare clients in transaction regulatory matters, including multi-million-dollar hospital acquisitions, hospital physician contract negotiations, and clinical integrations, as well as assisting resolving defending matters in antitrust and employment law, including discrimination. An expert in her field, she's often called upon to address the nation on healthcare issues, stock law, fraud and abuse, and any other detailed items of legal matters. Ms. Cleveland-Liggett, anyone that knows her knows this for sure. She is a strong and maybe the strongest advocate for fair treatment of everyone. Women is a focus, and ours included, and has served in distinction in the Georgia Commission for Women, the Georgia State Ethics Commission, State Personal Oversight Commission, and Council for the Hearing Impaired, as well as co-counsel for the Hearing Impaired Legal Clinic. She also has valued service and educational literacy, not only in the profession, but also in the community at large. A member of the American Bar Association, the American Health Lawyers Association, Georgia State Bar Association, National Employment Lawyers Association, and I could keep going on, but we will never get through the meeting. She is recognized as a leader in our nation, recognized in Houston Black America, a Black Atlanta. She's a 2019 graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School, Senior Managers and Government Certification Program, a graduate of Boston University School of Law, and the Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama. She's married to Dr. Christopher Leggett, interventional cardiologist, and they're proud parents of two wonderful children. If we were gathered together, I'd ask you for a round of applause and welcome. We're honored to have the regional administrator take time out of her schedule to spend time with us. And with that, Denise, if you're on, we'd love to hear from you And I'm sorry I was a little bit long-winded, but you've earned all of that.
Well, thank you, Jim. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. I need to take you on the road with me to be my official introducer. But thank you. It is such an honor to be with you all in Nashville. I'd never pass an opportunity to convene with, and I feel that Nashville is part of my family, my region family. I want to bring you greetings on behalf of Secretary Carson. It is so amazing that the work that is being done in Nashville is so reflective of all of his initiatives and things that he has been pushing for. I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for their hard work, but particularly I want to thank you, Jim. I have had the privilege of serving this region, and I have gone around this region, and I've seen good leadership and I've seen bad. And you are such an exemplary leader of an example of great leadership. The work that you have done through your leadership there in Nashville has been amazing. The city of Nashville and the housing there under your leadership and the board's work leads the nation in RAD conversions. Which is a pretty big deal because it's one of the things that the Secretary has been pushing to try and get the housing locations reconvened and re-opt, and so that they can become better living situations for the people that live there. And the city of Nashville has led the entire nation in RAD conversions. And so under your leadership and under the direction of the Board of Commissioners, you all are to be commended. And it's because of that leadership I had made sure that the Secretary got down there to see it. I wanted him to see what was going on in Nashville. So he's got a lot of places to go all over this nation, but one of the places that I insisted that he come to was Nashville. And he was so impressed when he left there, and after seeing the things that we saw there, the locations, the plans for the future, it was pretty amazing. And as I said, he's been in numerous places around this country, but he was very impressed with what you all are doing in Nashville. So thank you all. Thank you, Jim, for your leadership. Thank you to the Board of Commissioners as well. Today, I just wanted to acknowledge the city of Nashville for being the first designated Envision Center in the state of Tennessee. Envision Centers, for those of you who are not familiar, they are the brainchild of Secretary Carson. And when he came into office, he basically said, I just don't want to see how many people we can get into public housing. I want to see how many people we can push to self-sufficiency and get them to a stronger and a better place. And so with that, the Envision Centers were started, and the regional administrators were eventually tasked with being able to identify cities, some housing authorities, some are part of private sector, but identifying those institutions that could become Envision Centers. And so I've had the privilege of making that determination. The Region 4, I'm proud to say, we lead the nation in the number of Envision Centers that we have. And Envision Centers have 4 pillars. They are tasked with Envision centers that create economic empowerment, educational advancement, health and wellness, and character and leadership. Among those things are the road to creating self-sufficiency and creating individuals who not only receive a home, but also receive the ability to push themselves out of not only public housing, but push themselves into society so that they become stronger members of society. And so with that, I was able to have a conversations with Jim, and they expressed their interest in becoming one of our Envision centers. And they went through the application process, which is a pretty extenuous process, but they came out on the upside of determination, and once I signed off on it, they have now been designated as an Envision Center, and they are the first in the state of Tennessee. We have other states. Kentucky has 4 in their state. Georgia has 2, soon to be 3. But we will have before the end of the year, just in our region, 20 Envision centers, and we have 60 plus Envision centers around the nation. But the hard work that they have done, Jim and his staff, and you all as commissioners have done to get this up and running, it's amazing. And I'm expecting wonderful things to come out of the Envision Center there. Hope for individuals, changing the lives of people. That's ultimately what we're all about. What HUD is about, what the Secretary is about, what Jim and the commission, all of you commissioners that are on the call, that's what ultimately is about, changing the lives of individuals so that they have a different trajectory in life. And so, again, I want to thank all of you all for your participation. I want to thank you for the hard work in getting the Envision Center up and running. The Envision Center, they empower people to reach their highest potential and achieve their versions of the American dream by leveraging private funds to supply education, job training, financial literacy, and mentoring. We have every expectation that the MDHA Envision Center will innovatively address the needs of these residents by helping them help themselves and become self-sufficient. Again, I want to thank all of you for making this a reality. We are all about giving people not just a home, but giving them hope for their future. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing the progression of the Envision Center, but also the continued progression of the work that is being done there in Nashville, and I'm praying that it will continue. Thank you all so much.
Denise, thank you very much. And just for our commissioners and the directors, I think are aware of this, but I want to personally thank you. We came out of shortfall and on Wednesday, and the $5.2 million in additional extraordinary measures funding was a godsend to keep us in good stead with our landlords and our voucher program. I know you were directly involved in that, so thank you. As well as the $8.4 million additional emergency solution grant funding. I know you had a big hand in that. And while it's not confirmed, we're looking forward to the results of the disaster recovery funds that you're working on for us. So, you've been a great ally and a great friend in Nashville. I just want to thank you for that, especially on the extraordinary measures funding. That team that worked with us under your leadership really made a difference and kept our voucher program intact and helped us maintain the bond we have with our landlords. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim, and the commission. Thank you all for making Nashville a place that leads the nation in so many different areas, and for the continued work that you do to make the lives of people better. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Commission. And I look forward to a good continued working relationship with Nashville.
Well, this is Bill Purcell, and let me just say we thank you so much for this day and for all that you've done from the time that I joined this board. Jim Harbison has highlighted the importance of the relationship with HUD and the important work that HUD has done with and for us. And no greater example than what he just reported today, the announcement last week of the funding that will mean so much to us and the additional announcements that he's made here today. Tell us that relationship is strong and sustainable over time. And I want to especially thank you for those very special words that you said about Jim and about MDHA, coming from you, coming from HUD. It's a very, very important thing for us to hear and to say and to share with the city of Nashville. And so thank you for all that you've done and for all that's ahead. And I join you, and this board in the weeks and months ahead will join you in thanking Jim as well for all that he has done as our leader to bring us to this point. We are very thankful.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yes.
Well, with that understanding and the agendas before us, we will move to agenda item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Ansari moves to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Thaden seconds. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And you adopt. Now on agenda item number 4, which are the introductions for today, and I will defer to our executive director for the purpose of making those introductions.
Well, it's my pleasure. Arlene Cummings has been a property manager with us in several places. She's sort of been a utility infielder for us, but she's the property manager at Vine Hill Studio Apartments, which is near the fairgrounds. We have with us Mr. Charles Broach, the president of Vine Hill Studio Apartments, as well as Ms. Cummings, who is one of our best and brightest. And with that, look forward to any comments the Resident Association president may have or that Ms. Cummings may have. Arlene, you on? Yeah, on.
I'm not seeing it. We do have Mr. Broach.
Came up. Mr. Broach, are you on?
Mr. Broach.
See, you got his number?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Broach, if you can hear me, please, we look forward to any comments you might have. We might have some technical difficulties, but hope you're on.
You hear me now?
Yes, sir.
We had a match giveaway over here on Vine Hill, and we done pretty good for all the residents, but we try to help them out a little bit to try to talk to some of the residents how to quit smoking. And we got some few of the residents already quit. And we got a lot of stuff trying to get stuff going over here now. And we got a lot of people go through a lot of postal problems, how to talk to them. And we got some stuff going. We probably got some stuff like a food thing for all the residents. And new residents want the food. And then we got to just give stuff away, just give food away over here for the residents.
That's great. Now, could you spoke of the non-smoking, I think. Could you just expand on that a little bit? Because we've spent some time on it. And I think the commissioners might be interested.
Okay. We try to help the people because I had to quit smoking. And I talked to them the experience I went through, how I quit. And I told them it's not as easy to do. You have to let down the cigarettes. And there's a bunch of nicotines in, a bunch of nicotines. There's a bunch of diseases, there's a bunch of chemicals in there. And we got flowers we made of. And we got a metro department, health department will come on board, help us about this. And we are just giving flowers out for all the residents, trying to help them out with COVID-19 disease. And we're trying to help them out. A lot of people helping, try to get the word out for this smoking, this COVID-19 disease. For everybody to say, look, start breaking up, smell the roses.
Well, thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
it's great to hear from you.
Okay.
Arlene, are you on?
That's all.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I think as everyone's aware, we fund the non-smoking nicotine gum patches, et cetera, Metro Health. Metro Health is the conduit, but we pay them to take care of our residents in that regard. So glad to hear somebody has taken that job.
Shall we check on Ms. Cummings, or do you think that's concluded?
You got her on?
I don't have her number.
You don't have her.
For the board, Ms. Cummings is not here at the moment, and so if we can, we'll move on with the agenda. If she joins us later, we'll add her to the agenda, and if not, we will look forward to hearing from her next month. Agenda item number 5 is public comments, and we have a group of comments that individuals who have asked to speak to the board. They begin with Mr. Nat King Cole, well known, I think, to the board for his service as an employee of MDHA. Mr. Cole.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt for 1 minute, please? Yes, I just want to make sure everybody knows what the rules are on public comment. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. We would thank you if you'd hold your comments to 3 minutes. And in addition, the board may, but it's not, of course, not obligated to respond. But other than that, we can proceed, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Mr. Cole, we were looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, I want to thank the Board of Commission and the board chair for having us on today to speak. I just have a few concerns dealing with the members of MDHA and in our safety dealing with the COVID-19. I want to thank Mr. Harbison on responding to the letter that was sent out to all of the Board of Commissioners. One of the things that is my concern is the PPE. You know, I went down here to the Titan Stadium one day and got tested, and they were fully PPE. They had some blue Tyvek suits on. That's something that, you know, I would like to see if MDHA can possibly get. The other issue that I have is, you know, all the technicians wear protective masks, but then what we're running into is the resident not wearing masks. And we're not knowing what we're running into. That's possible danger for all the maintenance staff that's running in and out of these units. There's another issue, you know, I talked to Mr. Harbison about the hazard pay, where we're considered essential employees. So, you know, I was just thinking and wondering, you know, presenting this to the Board of Commission on the issue of hazard pay. And that's pretty much, you know, what I'm concerned about, considering that I've been tested positive twice. You know, is this going to be a continuance for our maintenance staff, or where do we go from here?
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. I should say for the record, I believe that you are the chief steward of the
That is correct.
International Union, and you've been the chief steward for some time now, I believe.
That is correct, for about 13 years there.
And I believe as well there'll be other members of the SEIU who are on our agenda Would you like for us to hear from each of them in turn before there's any response or questions from the board or the executive director? Would that be all right, Mr. Cole?
You can respond after everyone speaks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cole. We have, I believe, Gregory Price is next in order to present.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My concern is also with hazard pay. If MTA and Kroger and all of them could get hazard pay, why aren't we deemed just essential? Because we're public service workers also.
Price? Is there
Yes, sir.
anything else? Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, sir, that was it.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate you being here this morning, and we're going to go on with the list provided by SEIU. Tim Burns, are you on the call?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Please go ahead.
My concern is, I'm the vice chief steward in SEIU, and I'm with the pest crew at MDHA. My concern is that at the amount of units that we go into, the tenants don't regard the safety of their own health, but we have to. And I think that I'm afraid to an extent that I may catch it. Even though I have on my PPE, I do all the precautions. There's still the element of fear that I have that I may catch it, and if I get it, I'm gonna take it home to my family. In that regard, I hope that this is being considered, that we may get hazard pay to compensate for us doing the work at MHA. And one more thing, the pest crew has not had the privilege of being on the rotating schedule as the maintenance staff has. We've been working 40 hours ever since this thing happened. And I think it'd be good that the board could consider us getting hazard pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. And I believe Mr. Dave Martin is next. Dave Martin?
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Martin.
Hey, how's it going, man? My concern is the same as the other guys, but right now I'm not at work. I went to see my doctor last week, and I'm having anxiety issues because of the same. I'm going in and out of apartments with all my equipment on, but yet and still I don't know if I'm bringing it out with me, if I'm bringing it home to my family. I don't want to be responsible for them getting sick, and it's frustrating to have to go in, but in my heart, my job is to serve the public, and that's what I do. But I'm also a human too. And as far as us being compensated, that would help out with the extra medical bills. But just showing us that you care about us and that we not just some people that you can replace if one of us falls sick or dies. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you very much. And the last on the list that I have is Maya Matthews.
Hey, guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Ms. Matthews. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just want to wrap up and reiterate the concern we have for all of the employees at the agency. There are several changes that are coming, consolidating offices on some sides, working maintenance schedules on other sides, and we're afraid that we're not taking every precaution necessary to cover the employee, which is the greatest asset at this agency. Something as small as hazard pay does show good faith. It does offer us the opportunity to afford the expenses that we are incurring because we have not let up. We have been deemed as essential workers like any other public service, but a lot of other agencies are supporting their workers. And we'd like to see the same thing considered here. At the same time, if we're going to make changes in office and in staffing and consolidating office, which is right now what is being presented to the Section 8 and public housing sector, to be doing office sharing, that does not seem to be the wisest decision. we aren't doing everything possible as far as PPE goes on the maintenance side, and we've had 20 plus members fall sick to this illness. So we know that it's extremely contagious, and you can catch it more than once. So trying to bring multiple people into a workspace, even if it is financially beneficial, it's not in the best interest of the employee. And we do this work, and we don't feel that we're always being heard in our concern or in our offering of resolution. We've made several suggestions in work schedule, in acquiring PPE, and other options, and a lot of those things seem to be being washed over in an effort to maintain the fiscal dollars. But this agency knows that without us, those things would halt entirely. So we would like to hear what the board has in mind for the workers' safety. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Ms. Matthews. I believe that concludes all of the names that were provided to me for public comment from the SEIU. I would also say, for the record, but also for the members on the call, I understand that each member of the board of directors was provided with a communication from SEIU that provided, I believe, a certain amount of coverage of these issues in a written form, transmitted, I believe, at the end of last week to each of us by email. And then I also have in front of me a letter which was sent in response to these issues from Mr. Harbison, our executive director. And because I think Mr. Cole, specifically our lead steward, Mr. Cole referenced that letter, that I might, at this point, with the board's permission, ask Mr. Harbison if he wishes to address that response.
Well, Nat, thanks. We've had a lot of conversation on this. First, for the pesticide crew, if you did not receive your bonuses in the last paycheck, let me know. So we recognize your contribution. We value your contribution. As such, at the recommendation of your supervisors and management below me, you were awarded a bonus, and I hope that helps. If you look at the letter, and I'll just refer back to paragraph 6, and if I understand the context and the consistency of the concern is that our residents don't follow the rules. And believe me, that's extraordinarily troubling to me as well. And we're working with Resident Association presidents. We're holding education. I think Jamie put out something like 11 separate advocate. Jamie Berry, our communication director, put out like 11. I get the exact number. It's in the executive director report. Put out several communications to residents in many forms, and we're just not getting traction with them. We'll keep working on that. But on your number 6, if a resident refuses to comply with safety protocols, workers should have the right to decline service. We agree. That's sort of a change, a little bit of a change. We certainly agree. So if you haven't heard it elsewhere, that letter that I sent the SEIU, please share. Will Biggs is working with the property managers to make sure that unless it's an emergency service, it has to be, if it's emergent health and safety, we're not going to have much choice. Someone's at risk. But if not, and they won't wear their mask or meet the requirements, then we're not going to provide service, and we're going to have to document that in some way. We continue that conversation. Please keep talking to Pat. We're aware of it, and I think our response in writing best captures our ongoing discussion on this topic.
There are some other matters that were raised and are also addressed in the letter regarding within the space of health and protection. I would look specifically at item number 3. Is there anything else that you want to say about that?
We use digital thermometers now. We don't have one in every individual in the organization, but each supervisors have one. We have a protocol that is a best practice from Department of Healthcare professional. It's an app that goes on your phone. You use your temperature, you answer the questions, and we're following the CDC and Metro public health recommendations to provide the safest environment possible for our employees. Because we all agree, some absolutely agree with this. Yeah, you want their most precious resource and taking care of their business.
And on the issuance of PPE, which was the I suppose, the beginning of it and is addressed in the letter as well. Is there anything more you want to say generally about PPE?
PPE is industry standard, best practice, and we'll continue to track what's going on in the best practice world, and where we need to adjust, we'll adjust. The chief operating officer right now is part of a team looking at how we continue to do maintenance operations and property operations long-term, because the flip side of our only emergent maintenance procedures now is we are falling behind in our routine maintenance, and we have to move forward on that, especially our external maintenance and maintenance on the outside of the property. So I look forward to the results. We are studying it. We are directly in line, and we believe on track with the CDC recommendations, and the PPE provided is been demonstrated as being successful. I will comment that we've tested 1,092 times. Every employee has been tested 3 times. We continue to do that on a routine basis. We had 29 positives and 29 recoveries over a period of 6 months. So obviously huge concern. We're focused on it, and we believe we're in line with best practice, and PPE provided is satisfactory and safe.
One quick question for me, and then I'll see if the board has questions. If for any reason an employee feels as though the equipment that he or she has or the protocols that have been put in place are not being followed, and for whatever reason their supervisor or the individual to whom they would normally report is not responsive, or they do not feel is responsive, what is the process whereby they can bring their health concern more directly to the agency?
Well, it's our normal process, like normal, which if you're not familiar would not be normal. First of all, Pat Thicklin has an employee hotline. You can always go to the next person in chain. I can say in my time here, no employee has been hesitant about reaching out to me directly by email, so they can always email me, and we respond directly pretty quickly, either by referring you to the director or the due date back. But there's several avenues for them. We just had Employee Award Appreciation Day on Thursday, in which I spoke to the entire organization and went over those communication techniques, which I do at least twice a year personally to all the entire organization. So those opportunities are there, and employees not been shy. Meet with an employee tomorrow on an issue that she's raised. So they can apply to me directly. We encourage them to use their chain, because typically the solutions are best reached at the lowest level. And we have very skilled property managers and supporting directors and deputy directors that deal with most of these at that level.
Understood. All right, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Are there other questions?
Yes, this is Kay. And I have 3 questions. So the first one has to do with guidance for following hazard pay policy. I don't have your response letter up in front of me, but it references following CDC guidelines. So does HUD put out some policy that they want to be followed? Is there any requirement around that? Can the agency not just have its own policy that follows other best practices? I want to understand how that works. That's question number 1. Question number 2 has to do with the issue of reimbursing, so to speak, days missed due to this from their regular sick leave. I think that was one of the requests. So I'd like that addressed. And then the third has to do with a comment Ms. Matthews made on concerns around consolidating, seems to me like workspace, and putting people, maybe more people than they feel is safe, into workspace. So that's new information. I'd like for you to just speak to that if you would, Jim. Thank you.
I think it's best if we take those and add them to the request for information list. I'll just touch on them. We replied in writing to a previous SEIU request for hazard pay. other agencies in America receive federal funding for it. We did not. And so the rules that would go with that federal funding and their interpretation don't apply to us. However, we did go to Metro and research what Metro Nashville has done so that we can be in line with them. And we believe we're absolutely in line with them, and that's the nature of our previous response. But Matt, add that to the RFI list, and we'll give you a more formal response later. I'll take again, reimbursement for days missed. I believe it relates to the request that after a certain period of time, you don't get full reimbursement. That is in line with the guidance on the CARES Act. We'll take that, Kay, and come back to you with a response from our attorney. And then consolidating workspaces. There are many options we're looking at right now on how we do better when we come back. We've got to get back to being able to address all the issues all the time at MDHA at some point, and no one, I think, can with confidence say when the crisis will end. Nothing has been decided yet. All options are on the table. The guidance I gave was learn from our lessons that we've had over the 6 months. I think our primary one has been the great success of telework. So where possible, employ telework to a large extent, but all telework has some form of returning and being at work. But if you no longer need a full-time office, there may be a way to, I won't say consolidate, but have an office that's cleaned and available for a teleworker to come in and use at the periodic basis as needed as they conduct face-to-face work in whatever line of affordable housing profession they're in. But again, we'll take that one for the record and come back to you. I'll add that to the RFI list and give you something more formal.
Thank you.
This is Paulette Coleman. Kay covered two of my questions, and I have another question. What would be the financial impact on the agency if hazard pay were considered, and how does hazard pay in terms of the amount to the agency compare with the bonuses that were given?
I don't have those numbers at hand, Commissioner, but we'll get them for you.
And then the final question has to do with, we've been told, and it's been reported that MDHA employees have a rotating work schedule of 40 hours on, 40 hours off. And I think it's also been reported that some units, and I think pest control is one of them, does not have that rotating schedule. And I just want to make sure that is the case. And what would be the consequences if pest control were to have that rotating schedule?
The majority of our maintenance staff is on the 40 on work, or excuse me, it's actually 48 hours in an 80-hour period. They work Monday through Saturday, and they have the following week off. The other section in that comes in. That's the majority. We have specific skill sets that, because of the nature of the work and the quantity of work, that does not apply. And those largely are in our pesticide, to a lesser degree in the construction team under our Turcock. There's plumbers and our gas technicians because of an inadequate gas system. I'll have to come back with an answer on the consequences of not treating apartments for pesticide and the consequences to an aging natural gas system of not doing what is, in our experience, of needed daily maintenance to make sure it doesn't cause a hazardous condition. But I can get that risk assessment. I just can't do it off the top of my head.
Jim, I just have one more question, if I could. How often are the apartments treated for pests?
Well, there's a wide range of apartment quality for us, so it varies greatly. And each property has a high rise that's relatively modern, or a John Henry Hale compared to a Casey. They're all at different metrics, but I can get those answers for you and break it out in detail for you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Again, let me thank each of you for your time here this morning. We appreciate your advocacy as well as your service to the agency very much. And you can see there's a fair amount of information that will be coming back to the board as a result of your presentations here this morning, which is another reason for us, and I hope you to be thankful. Thank you very, very much. We're on agenda item number 6, report from committees, and we begin with a report from the Joint Development and Finance Committees. To the chairs. Chair Payton first, I believe.
Yes, so the Joint Finance and Development Committee meeting met on September 3rd, and the first item on the agenda was the 2021 budget. We had previously had presentations in our August committee meetings of the budget, and some additional information and requests were provided to us at the September 3rd meeting. The budget request is, so the operating budget has an income of approximately $150 million and operating expenses of approximately $131 million. Commissioners' questions were sufficiently answered, and there was a unanimous recommendation to move the budget forward as presented. And so with that, I would make the motion now that we should approve the 2021 budget.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded. Motion by Commissioner Payton, second by Commissioner Ansari. Just discussion. I can say I know, as the chair indicated, both chairs have indicated, this is a budget that has had considerable discussion and about which I think it's fair to say there has been more information provided, both in response to the board and the committees, but also the desire, I think, of the agency to provide information in new and more useful and valuable ways, perhaps. In any event, all of that is recognized and appreciated, and there's no other question or discussion. Are you ready to vote on the budget? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And you adopt. We are now on agenda item number 7, which is the report from the Management Review Committee. This is a committee that has been meeting over the course of the last few weeks. But since our previous meeting and before our meeting this morning, you may know, and in fact, I know all the board members know, we have received a communication from our executive director concerning his plans for his future and the future of the agency. That was received by me and then by the committee, first by me last Friday, and then received by the committee this morning. As a result of receiving that, the committee has had a motion, which we'll present to you in just a moment, which is frankly technical in nature and simply fulfills the obligations, having received a notice of resignation, simply provides us with what we must do in order to fulfill our obligations under the contract. But let me say before presenting that formal motion that as both your board chair, as the chair of Management Review, as a member, I think as we proceed into this more technical response, it's important for us, and me in particular, to say what it means and how important it has been to have had the leadership of Jim Harbison over the course of these now almost 7 years. And by the time of the end of his service, it will be, I think, almost exactly 7 years since he came to work here in Nashville, following 3 years with HUD and a distinguished career in public service, including the United States Marine Corps and in many other ways. There are many things that we can and will say over the course of the weeks ahead, months ahead, and things that will become, I think, evident in the years ahead as well about this service. But I will note that the comments this morning by Denise Cleveland Liggett are probably the most important words that we could be reminded of at a moment like this. She said, his service has been exemplary. She said, he is a great leader. She said, from the perspective of the HUD and also the secretary, he is amazing, and he has allowed Nashville to, in her words, lead the nation. This was not specifically about what she described as the first designated Envision Center in Tennessee. That was the purpose of the call and what she highlighted. But those words were her words, I believe, describing from the perspective of our National Housing and Urban Development Department agency, and from her perspective in the role in the Southeast. Exemplary, great leader, amazing, and leads the nation. Those are things that we will have, again, I hope, significant opportunities to talk about, to think about, to celebrate, and record. The press release that issued on Friday from the agency, and I want to thank Jamie Berry, who did this from vacation, as well as her whole communications team, began that process. That press release does, I think, a good job of outlining work, service, accomplishment, and commitment over a significant period of time, 7 years. But that's not the end of the conversation or discussion or the legacy. I don't suggest that at all for a moment. I felt the need on behalf of the board to say those things now, because we're just about to move into a very formal set of actions that have to happen in order to move forward. But that's my reflection as we begin that process. And so in order to bring the full report, I should advise you that the Management Review Committee met this morning, received the resignation of our executive director, and as a result of that, a motion was made, which was approved by the Management Review Committee. And for the purpose of taking up that motion now, I will recognize Commissioner Ansari.
Sorry. So whereas on September 4th, 2020, James E. Harbison submitted his resignation to the chair of the MDHA Board of Commissioners and the Management Review Committee. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Management Review Committee hereby accepts the resignation of Mr. Harbison effective September 4, 2020. That pursuant to Section 5.1, Section 3 of the Executive Employment Contract, or the contract, effective December 1, 2013, and as amended between Mr. Harbison and MDHA, the contract will terminate on December 3rd, 2020. That pursuant to Section 1.2 of the contract, the resignation will be considered as notice to MDHA that Mr. Harbison does not wish to extend the contract, which will terminate by its terms. The Management Review Committee action taken hereby will be transmitted to the entire MDHA board at its regularly scheduled board meeting on September 8, 2020. A written copy of this report and the final board action will be provided to Mr. Harbison, and that the Management Review Committee hereby thanks Mr. Harbison for his dedicated and loyal service to MDHA for nearly 7 years.
That was the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Thaden seconds. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And you adopt.
No. Did y'all not hear me?
No,
I'm having technical problems on my phone. I
That's
can't
all right.
hear. I keep cutting off. This is Antoinette Batts.
That's Commissioner Batts. Commissioner Batts.
No.
Commissioner Batts votes no.
I vote no.
Thank you, Commissioner Batts. And you adopt. In terms of the celebration of the Executive Director's service, with your approval, I would like to ask Commissioner Coleman to lead our efforts to work with the staff to think through and with the executive director. Regrettably, with the days of large banquets and celebrations of that type are, I don't know when they'll come back or when they will be, but there should be and can be, and certainly the Management Review Committee hopes there will be the opportunity to do that in a way that it helps us and the city and the community and not just this board, but the city thank and celebrate this service. And so with your approval, Commissioner Coleman, under our rules, there was no way for me to ask you about this beforehand. I hope you will accept this assignment and certainly seek the help of the staff and the agency and others as we think about the best ways to do that. Is that something you would be willing to do? Commissioner Coleman. We lost Commissioner Coleman? Well, the good news is she didn't say no. So I'm going to go on the assumption that she can lead in this effort. And the good news again is we have a number of weeks and whatever amount of time is necessary in order to do just that. As we think about how to move forward, I think everyone here knows this is not something that happens very, very often, thankfully. And at the same time, something that we need to work through. It's, as your chair, it falls to me at least to start that process. And so what I have asked to do and will do, I've consulted with the Management Review Committee, but this is the chair's decision to appoint a group that will begin the process, what I would call a transition working group. And the transition working group would have one particular purpose right now, and that is to begin both thinking about and bringing together the information that we as a board will need as we face the decisions that are ahead of us, specifically to explore our world and tell us what we need to know here at the beginning of this process. As you know, in many transitions, there are working groups like this, appointed transition committees and teams. This working group is charged with, again, finding that information and sharing it with us so that we can, as we go forward, make the decisions that we need to make, both about, and I think classically about the interim directorship and then the search of whatever type we may decide as a board to undertake for the executive director going forward. And so for the purpose of starting this process, I have asked 5 individuals to serve in this role as a transition working group to first think about what are the HUD requirements, what are the state requirements, what are the metro requirements, what are the requirements for an interim director, and what are the requirements for any search process. Saul Solomon, our board counsel, will staff and support this group as they bring that information together. And we hope as a committee, as a management review committee, that they will, during this time period in the very near future, be able to canvass, talk with, inquire of each of the board members, something that individual board members cannot do, but a working group can. Talk to the executive director about his thoughts on transition and the long term, as well as, in their discretion, former executive directors or those knowledgeable about the agency. Certainly, we believe they should talk to the staff, both those that would normally be thought of in positions of leadership within the agency, but others who may desire to be heard on their own views on these issues of transition and the future. And finally, and not just because it's the largest group, not last in order for sure, the larger community. And that's a community of Nashville. That's a community that we know and we serve, but it's a community with multiple pieces and places. And this particular group of people, I think, will have a sense of where they should begin, certainly, and ultimately will follow their own findings. So I've asked 5 people to serve in this role. This is just a start to start the process. It is not in any fashion a decision about any aspect of what's ahead. That's in the hands of the board, and it will ultimately be decided by the board. Both the process and any result will be a board decision. But for now, and to begin now, I've asked the following 5 individuals to serve in this role to help us all. First, I've asked Cynthia Kroom. Cynthia Kroom is currently the executive director of our Metro Action Commission. She served in that role since July of the year 2000. She is someone, as a result of that 20 years of service, who understands many of the things that we deal with. Dr. Kroom is a person who deals with federal funding, as we do, through different funding streams than we have, but deals with that level of federal funding, federal oversight, and federal concern and inspection that we have faced over time. The Metro Action Commission is an agency that deals with many of the same concerns, challenges, opportunities, and actually shares many of the same individuals whom they serve through their Head Start programs and a wide variety of community development programs. And so I think she knows the territory in a unique and special way. Prior to serving as the executive director of the Metro Action Commission, Dr. Kroom was the chief of planning for the Tennessee Housing and Development Agency. And so she, in the previous stage of her career, was involved in the planning area. She has her doctorate from Tribeca, her master's degree from the University of Illinois. I believe that she has been able to join the call. I'd like to first, before introducing her to you, take a moment to identify the other individuals that I've asked to assist her in this working group here at the start of our process. The second individual is Dot Shell-Berry. Dot Shell-Berry, from 1972 until 2003, worked in state government. She concluded her time in state government as the commissioner of the Department of Personnel. Finishing her service, retiring from state service, she came to work for Nashville. She was first the interim director of social services for Nashville, Tennessee, and she went on to be the director of human resources for Nashville, Tennessee. Dot Shell-Berry is now retired, but she had a career in public service, and most importantly for this committee, a career in the area of human resources and personnel. And I don't know anyone in the world who has dealt with, worked with, been successful with transitions than Dot Shell-Berry. So she's agreed to be a part of this committee and be a support to Dr. Kroom. Hank Helton is currently the executive vice president of and the chief stakeholder officer at Pathway Lending. He will be known to a number of people on this call today through his work at Pathway Lending, which is a community development financial institution. But also, he was the first director of the Mayor's Office of Affordable Housing, and then came to work for MDHA in that same space. He knows this agency, he knows the work, and he's particularly knowledgeable about and involved in the affordable housing aspect of our work. Dr. Dexter Samuels is someone that the board met fairly recently as we began this process of management review earlier this year. Dr. Samuels came and presented to us, you will recall, on the work that he had done as a part of the Airport Authority, in fact, the chair of the Airport Authority. Dr. Coleman, I think, corrected the minutes just last month to make sure that we correctly identified him. You will remember his presentation to us, and his presentation was an important part of the work that we're going to do going forward to provide for evaluations in the future. He is currently the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs at Meharry Medical College, Executive Director of the Center for Health Policy at Meharry Medical College, also an Associate Professor there. Prior to that, he was the Vice President for Student Affairs at Tennessee State University and an Assistant Dean in the College of Public Service at TSU. He lives in this neighborhood. He knows the the work, I believe. And the last person whom I've asked to help us think and to talk with us and to hear us is Eileen Behan. Eileen Behan is retired now from a 34-year career at Catholic Charities. She began her work actually at the old Metropolitan Department of Public Welfare, worked for a time at Luton Mental Health Center, and again spent most all of her career with Catholic Charities, serving in many ways people that we know well and care very much about. She also served for 8 years in the Metropolitan Council. She represented this 6th councilmanic district in the Metropolitan Council. She lives in this neighborhood. She knows well from her own as a resident and as a neighbor the Envision process. I think is well known to those who have been involved with the Envision process, both inside and outside of our footprint. And I think will be someone who brings a neighborhood community as well as a social services and related background to the work. Their purpose is just what I described, is simply to begin the process of helping us know what can be known. That's not something commissioners can do individually very easily, especially during COVID, but ultimately hear, receive, think about what we need to do going forward, both in the immediate transition and the long-term transition, and then it will fall to us to reach conclusions about the best way to proceed on an interim basis and the best way to proceed on a long-term basis. We have models from the past here and other places. They can bring us those models, but it is not my intention that about any of this they would decide. They would simply be a vehicle to collect in a broad way information from our world and share it with the board so that we can make the right decisions, or perhaps initially ask more of the right questions so that we can get to the right decisions and keep this agency going. I don't think there is any question, and the board has met many times over the course of my time here, not just once a month, but all through our committee process. The Envision process that's underway now is one that continues. The work of so many people on this call and the people who they lead and supervise should know that the transition of the leader is not a reflection or it suggests any change is needed, required, or indicated in those things that are working well, doing well, making a difference. We just heard from HUD about their pleasure regarding so much of what we're doing and all of what we do under their umbrella. And there are so many other aspects of the work of this agency that receive similarly high marks and encouragement. It's a board that doesn't want any part of this process to cause any concern regarding where we're headed as an agency or how ultimately we will get there. We will keep doing the best we know how as a board, and we know you will keep doing the best you know how as individuals who serve and care and love the people who are so much dependent on the things that we provide day in, day out, night in and night out. So that is my thinking about what we'll do next. I expect that they will come in a couple of weeks and talk to the Management Review Committee. I expect that we will have some report from them at our next board meeting in October, which will allow us a period of time then to think about what more we need to know and what we need to do next and reach some conclusions. If we can in October, it could be later on. Thankfully, the way in which Mr. Harbison has approached this, we have his personal leadership through the first week in December, and I don't have any question that he will be supportive of and continue to lead and be the responsible and caring leader that he's been throughout that time and in the time ahead. Are there any questions? Dr. Kroom, I think, is on the call. Dr. Kroom, are you there?
Yes, Commissioner Purcell, I am here.
Is there anything that you would like to ask?
Purcell, are you able to?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
were you able to hear what I said? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I was able to hear what you said. I just want to add that we certainly consider it an honor to assist the board in this way. I do so with sort of a heavy heart because Jim is clearly my colleague and my friend. But we want to do whatever we can to assist because MDHA is a vital partner in our community and certainly a vital partner to the Metropolitan Action Commission. So we are happy to serve and look forward to assisting the commission.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kroom. Thank you as well for joining this call. I know when you left for a long Labor Day weekend, you did not expect to be joining an MDHA board call today, and I know that you you have many things to do. So we will look forward to our further communications and seeing you in the Management Review Committee, and hopefully seeing you when we're next together, perhaps at the October meeting as well. I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Management Review Committee will meet on September the 22nd at 9 o'clock, again, for the purpose of interim, taking this up, and then we will hope and make this a regular part of our board agenda in each of our monthly meetings and probably our committee agendas as well. Is there anything that, in what I just described, that raises questions? There are not many answers at this point, but there, I think, is a concerted desire to move forward as a board and to bring you what you need when you need it.
I would just like to echo what you said. And first of all, thank you, Jim, for your 7 years of service. You have given this everything, and I really, really commend you and appreciate you for your service. And I also just want to echo that our organization is so strong, and our staff is doing outstanding work. And so please have faith and confidence and patience with us as we go through this very intentional and thoughtful process to find our new leadership.
And I too want to thank, excuse me, I too want to thank Jim for your service, fellow Naval Academy graduates and active duty, and men who are on active duty together. I think what you've done for public service, what you specifically have done for MDHA, especially around the RAD conversion process, which essentially gives us an opportunity to make the future be what we believe it can be for the city of Nashville and for Davidson County. So I know the next 90 days is there's there'll be a lot of back and forth, but I do hope that you take all the words from Commissioner Purcell and Commissioner Thady to heart. We're very pleased with you and your service, and what we hope to do over this next 90-day period is really work to try to figure out what does MDHA need going forward. I mean, you set the bar very high for whomever may be on the other side, but our goal is to figure out how to take what you've done and grow it. So thank you very much for planting those seeds and doing great things with your staff, for recruiting, bringing folks in from HUD, looking for people with different backgrounds and experience to bring into the organization to make it more diverse and more reflective of the goals we have for the future. We thank you.
And it might be now, because the next agenda item is the executive director's report. If there are others who, and again, Paulette, have you joined us where you can hear my voice again?
Yes, I have.
Did you hear what my request of you as your chair, asking a board member did you hear my request that you lead the process for thinking about the celebration of Jim's service?
No, I didn't, but I will be happy to do it.
Thank you very much. And with that, Mr. Harbison.
Well, thank you very much. Before I get to my original remarks, let me comment on a couple things on transition. We finished RAD December 31st of 2019. In 2019, we had a large commitment from probably our most metro government for financing, and that changed. So as we look at transition, there are 3 items that I put in motion that I want to make sure are square with us. We're moving pretty fast. And regardless of who sits executive director chair or the commissioner chair right now, those two major strategic events, finishing RAD and a loss of capital investment, would mean that the first one, it would give pause to conduct a strategic planning process. So unless I hear objection from commissioners, we're going to get an RFA out. And I would ask that the commissioners sit on the selection committee for strategic planning consultant, which I think will be a process we'll go through maybe simultaneously what you're doing, but professionally lead you through that. Maybe not now, but at some point in the future. It'll take us a while to pick the person. And then you've got to get a plan to conduct the planning. And that will be a process that will take some time, but I'd like to put that in motion. If there are objections, you don't have to do it, but it will give you a goal of generating a written strategic plan in line with whatever decisions you make for executive director, that both might inform the other. So
I appreciate very much your putting that on the table. I knew that was a part of your thinking in previous weeks, and I will, it's something that we should talk about, the board should talk about. There's much to say about it. Obviously, the decision needs to be made by the board ultimately on whether a strategic plan should be completed or underway before a new executive director comes, or whether a new executive director would want to be a part of the process of actually working through the creation of that plan. I understand your vision would be simultaneous, and that may be something the board should take up, but in any event, I understand what you're suggesting, and we will certainly talk about it.
And for clarity, I'm only recommending the selection of a consultant. When you start the process, you pull the trigger. It will take time to select the consultant, but we don't have to start that process. Just getting the RFA out the door is going to take us 45 days to get a good one.
I certainly think as a minimum, the board would like to see the RFA and be a part of the process of thinking about an RFA. And then we can, having decided about the RFA, its creation, we can make a decision as a board as to whether or not to go forward or away from other leadership.
And the other major transitional item already touched on is what we have a working group that's already in process. I anticipate that within the next 90 days, there would be a shift in our procedures of how we address COVID. And that's something that's been underway, state group's been underway for that for most of the summer. We'll address, we hope in a better sense, a complete revisit of PPE, how we do our safety protocol procedures, and how much the workforce is actually engaged with tenant interactions mainly, and voucher interactions on an ongoing basis. So those are on the horizon. Those are procedural largely. There's really policy work with that, and that would probably, I think, occur regardless. But that's, I think, an informational item. And it's just as we are seeing some, it's inevitable, we're seeing some routine maintenance piling up because we're not doing it. And especially in the external, shall we say, curb appeal of the properties is outside work, which should be relatively safe if conducted in the right fashion. So those are the main ones.
I appreciate that very much. Let me just say quickly in response, I believe the board is confident that you will continue to do those things that are central and a part of your work. And we had a meeting, I think, just last week, and particularly on issues of health and welfare and safety of our residents and our employees. We know you'll continue to keep those things not just front of mind, but front of everything that we do. And so I don't think that you heard no objection. And in fact, I think support for the notion of continuing to work with our employees for their safety, to review the issues that are central to the to their own well-being as both employees and residents and those that we serve across the board. So I don't think you hear anything from a board member or from the chair that would in any way stand in the way of keeping our people safe and protected and continue to provide that leadership every day that you're here.
Commissioner Purcell, is anyone hearing echoes, those of us that are off-site?
I just started hearing it just now. Is there someone with an extra telephone or
Yes, I am hearing echo. It's very difficult to hear, and it's been so for a little while.
Right. Is there anyone who has a telephone and a computer on?
If everyone could mute their lines, that may be helpful.
Can we mute them? How's that? Is that better? Can we mute everyone?
Are there others?
That's better.
I'm still, you're still getting feedback.
Okay.
How about that? Are you still hearing our call?
Could Jim speak so we could?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's a slight echo though.
Yeah, it's still there, but.
We think we're getting closer.
Jim Filton is.
Jim Filton, are you muted?
Jamie Berry looks like she's kind of laptop set up.
Jamie? How's that? Is that better? No, still got it. Anyone who has a telephone and a laptop open, please think about muting both. We're trying to mute everyone, but how about that? Is that any better? Thumbs up? All right. We're on to the executive director's report, and people keep looking to see if maybe you have a loose phone that's on somewhere nearby you. Because there's still one out there. There's still an extra microphone somewhere. All right, Mr. Harbison, you're recognized.
So I've got on the screen bullet points that we'll send to you. Just I'm not going to have time, I think, to cover all of them. I'll get the highlights as we go through. Just to recap our mission, 5 broad goals that have followed that will hopefully assist in turnover. But the first topic is one that's been one we've worked a lot of time on, and a really unfortunate event for us here in Nashville. It was the event that occurred at Edge Hill with Ms. Hines, the mother of 2 children, a lovely woman I've met, talked with her, Will Biggs has talked with her, Lamont Westbrook is the personal manager along, Deborah Prowl, her social worker. As you may recall, there was a search warrant issued by the court. It was executed by Metro Nashville Police Department. So the first key point is MDHA has no role in search warrants. But like other property management owners, we collaborate, cooperate with law enforcement, and at least we used to. And when they would provide a court-ordered search warrant for an apartment number, which never had a name on it, just had the apartment number, we would have the key. The same day this search warrant went tragically amiss, we had another one in the same Edge Hill area that went well. But we issued the keys, the officer would sign for it. They've returned the keys, and that has gone about instant on an ad hoc basis. There's no written procedure or policy on it other than we have a form for some time. I've stopped that key issuance. We're going to accept the risk of having to fix doors. One of the reasons we've done that previously costs, $500 to $1,000 to replace the door when you take the big battering ram and knock it down. But right now, the only person who approved renting a key to anyone outside of the tenant and our maintenance team is me, and I don't intend to do much of that over the next 9 days. So the first thought is no role in it, but the second thought is we're going to do everything we can with Ms. Hines to make her life better. And to that end, we've worked for close to 2 weeks. She has elected a self-move to move herself so that she can receive the amount of money we would pay her. That's $1,700. $1,000 for a 3-bedroom relocation, $750 for one-time inconvenience fee. Once you receive those funds, we depend on the resident to tell us when they moved. If they say they moved a certain date, that's the date we track. If they change their mind, or in this case, if we showed her 4 apartments and one seems satisfactory, this poor woman's been through a lot. So we're doing everything we can to help her. The first apartment turned out to not be what she wanted. There was a gap in information on that coming to me that she moved. We've now offered her an apartment that's in the Germantown area. It's lovely. She is in the process of moving there, but in the process of discovering, asked her some things that we're going to provide And for the board's knowledge, here is the following additional assistance we'll be providing. In addition to the $1,750 for moving and the one-time inconvenience fee, once she moves in, we'll start a $200 per month stabilization pay for 12 months for a total of $2,400 to smooth her transition and her entry. She'll have a new washer dryer off of our washer dryer contract we have for Kirkpatrick that will be installed. It's got a lawn, and you know, if you don't have a lawnmower, you can't cut grass, so we'll give them a lawnmower. There were some touch-up and paint items in our site that when I went through it with Lamont Westbrook, the senior property manager, and she was supposed to be, but we just missed each other. Went through this, doing some touch-up paint, and we're replacing all the countertops. She wasn't happy with the countertops, so we have a vendor coming in to repair those and replace those today, as well as the bathtub resurfacing. We're also power washing all the bricks, porch, and vent covers, replacing electrical plates, things that she asked for that normally would not be in a kit we would make ready. So that's going on while she's making herself move, and we'll provide her a new refrigerator stove. So I think that's going to get her as close as we can back on the feet. I'm proud of one of our best social workers. He's talking to her daily. As of this morning, she has not moved. It is a self-move, and she will move the time and place of her choosing. And we will help her with that by providing boxes or anything she asks. But we will not know when she's moving until she notifies us. You know, you think about getting up, you know, if you've got a basic job, you've got 2 kids, you're trying to raise them, and all of a sudden at 5:45 or 6 in the morning, the world collapses. We're trying to be very sensitive to let her have room to have a life again while we ask her what she needs and be engaged enough if she needs support. She can get it. And if that happens to you from someone that represents all of us as the, shall we say, government, you tend not to trust the rest of them. So I really want to thank Brenda Morrow. Brenda's a great friend and a resident association president at HQ. She's helped us sort of reconnect, and we're already connected, but also to establish the trust necessary for Ms. Hines to speak with us. And we anticipate she will move this week. That's what she's told us, but if it goes next week, that's your choice. So that's that was one of the major events. If we look at what's next on the list on COVID, we have a lot of COVID work going on. And if I have time to get through each of the departments, which I want to give sort of a complete overview, you'll see each one has something occurring. But we have a COVID application on our cell phones every day. It takes a temperature. It gets entered in there. We answer the questions. And those that have risk, that Thicklin arranges for them to take a test if they choose not to take a metro test. We conducted 1,092 tests thus far of employees. Every employee, in general terms, had the opportunity to be tested 3 times. We've had 29 confirmed cases with 29 recovered. We've issued a lot of laptops to allow telework, well over 150, all N95 masks, guns, gloves, for 30 days on hand for PPE. A preventive plan for our senior and tower properties is ongoing with additional security at those towers to make sure the 24/7 is controlled access only to our most sensitive areas. And we are continuing to test Thank Nashville General on a monthly basis at one of the senior sites on a rotational basis. We think we're providing the best we can. We talk directly with Metro Health on a weekly basis. Matt Wilshire leads that effort in liaison with Metro, and we're making sure that we're aligned with them as close as possible for all of our activities. Moving on, we've talked about SEIU, so I won't touch on that. We had a wonderful Employee Appreciation Day last Thursday, a series of great awards. Will Biggs received the senior awards, our most outstanding employee, along with the best employee of the year was Rosalind Garrett, and our Rising Star Award in our finance section, Jonathan Craycraft, all awards that we issued virtually this year. We generally try to make it a fun day and go someplace to have a picnic, but obviously that's off the table. But it was a great appreciation day on Thursday, and I certainly appreciated spending time with the employees, covering where we are on the agencies, and soliciting their questions as they may desire. I'll move on to Chief Finance Officer. We're going to circle back for Gus and Matt. We'll do the OPS 1 demonstration last. that'll probably be hopefully of interest to the commissioners. Real quickly, we got Light Tech for Bicycle 4. We're proceeding on the financing for that. Our interest rate reduction for January Hale from 4.25 to 3.7 remains at HUD for approval. And we've closed the loan for Red Oak Townhomes up here at the top of the hill that pairs with Metro's money, where we will have first new inventory, additional new inventory of affordable housing. On finance, you see the bullets. The main one there is our tornado claim is into TENCO. And I want to highlight the middle one, which I probably should have put a big bold on. I've got it later in community development. We were released by HUD from shortfall status on Wednesday. That's a big deal, in that now we return to the local field office for normal supervision and back to normal operations. Still within the 2-year plan, we don't anticipate starting issuing vouchers on a regular basis for about another 30 days. But it does mean that we also do not anticipate HUD having to come up with additional emergency funding to keep us from not making our vouchers. I really want to thank Norman Deeb, Melinda, Jim Thilgen, Buck, Gus. I've been on most of those calls. A big shout out to Deborah Lee, our crisis manager from HUD in Washington, D.C. She was phenomenal. And it was truly a collaborative effort that led to us not having to face, there's no way to say other than really negative repercussions for our overall plan.
Jim, just real quick, from a lessons learned perspective on that, can you just give us the top one or two lessons learned?
Don't have COVID. I mean, this is a direct result of recertification of people who've lost. This is really unprecedented for us. So what happened, I think I've touched on this previously, we had roughly 1,100 families who lost, I mean, most of our would be classic working poor. Mm-hmm. And when you lose your APCO job, whatever, you go from paying 30% of your income at a certain rate, minimum rents. That gap has to be picked up by the budget. If you've been projecting that you will keep a certain inventory in at that level, we've always got enough cushion for what I term normal attrition and normal recertification. But when you take a fifth of your inventory and all of a sudden it dramatically shifts from $300 a month on average to, and that a significant number of hundreds to $25, you're really struggling. I think the best lesson learned is maintain great relations with your key partners in HUD. Always be a high performer. One of our ongoing goals and have good CMAP scores. Section 8 management assessment program. Because that our reputation was rock solid, and I think those are the things that carried the day, and that we had great credibility, and we were on the table early. We identified the problem to them. They did not bring the problem to us. We flagged this late March, early April, went to them and said, we see real clouds on the horizon here, help. And by the time, HUD's not always quick in response, they're always thorough, but not always quick. By the time we got the initial responses back, and I'd made some calls, these got involved, about that time it flagged in their system too. So they weren't coming to us with a problem, we came to them, and we told them actions we were taking. We were stopping, voucher issuance, other things that they later directed. We got ahead of that in their management team. So I'm not sure there's an overall direct lesson learned other than run a great program, as we do and have with Norman for a long time. On top of your finances and being able to project. And we helped create this 2-year tool for HUDs. You're really into it. I could really bore you. But we project out 2 years and what our voucher program will look like, allowing us to make those decisions in just another way. So I think that's the lesson learned is good management and early identification. So moving on to Director of Communications, Jamie has been very busy. We've had 5 e-newsletters out, mainly focused on COVID-19, and a separate resident newsletter, all the MDHA residents. We continue to work on this education program for the residents. We've had very good social media and media highlights that are useful for us. Primarily, our biggest hits have been on Nashville Public School updates that we sort of spam out to our Twitter and social lists. And then we were recognized as the Southeast Building Conference as the Grand Award winner with the highest reach to our residents of 28% were not already on MDHA on Instagram, and we were able to increase that by a significant amount. So that continues. Strategy and Internal Affairs on the Mad Shop. He's done a lot of work keeping he does a direct liaison with National General, and that's kept our testing program online. Along with that, they are the architects, and Zach Blair has been our architect of the OPS-1, especially the commissioner screen, which you can see here at the end of this. Philanthropic solicitation efforts continue, and mainly we're working on the community quarterback, trying to make that come to fruition. And we've done a little bit of internal assignments, so Matt will track the request for information from the board, keep that list, and then we'll schedule responses in a way so that those responses can be closed out in a board setting, which we understand is the most efficient way to make that accomplished. On our operations, like method, Gus Herder is going to track all the internal task lists. It's pretty extensive. They'll also be on the OPS-1. On the human resources, they've mastered really our contact tracing. So when we get a positive, we're very skilled at being able to track down which employees may have touched or been involved with the person who came up positive. Our last event, this was about 3 weeks ago, we had 81 employees. I was one up and had to take an additional set of tests, and all the conflict of interest. Little big shop as usual, bread and butter core. But some highlights, as you recall, we've presented on Forest Bend. This is a failed LIHTC development that we swooped in on as a great opportunity to gain new affordable housing while picking up an investment partner. So our step 1 and 2, really of a 4-step process, are complete. The construction is complete. We've got control of the units, we're leasing up, and we're identified as property. So we will make money, and we will control the LIHTC property. The next 2 steps is formal acceptance of us as a LIHTC partner and ensuring that our LIHTC partnership involves no capital, which is what the agreements are on the phones, but not in writing. So we've gone into this from the start that no equity contribution we will pick up as a general partner, a limited partner, have the tax credits, which means when the tax credits burn off, we pick up the property. That's moving forward. It takes a lot of time in management. Those calls are based on a monthly basis. It is leaving up. We talked about the COVID procedures well as underway. You'll see some of the bullet points there. A key important point, I think everyone's seen this, not evict anybody the rest of the year. So CDC's put a moratorium on it. We will do our best on criminal evictions. We've not had a great track record thus far. We took one that we thought was a criminal eviction to court. It was heard and it was returned, and they got to keep their apartment. So that moratorium, while it's specific for economic conditions, it does extend and influence into what we call lease violations for criminal behavior.
So as a matter of practice, would you say we're going to continue, but if we believe a crime is committed, to build?
Oh, we're going to keep trying. Yeah, I want to shape the expectation that we're going to have things that we normally do in management practice to protect the rest of the residents, and not be able to pull it off, have to keep our eyes on it, and then the first time it'll be known to the world is something else might happen, right? Yep. So I'm not trying to preview that, but that's what I'm trying to lay out for the group. Curve Victory Hall, we've opened the website and resident portal for the VA referrals. Working with the VA, that's going to start leasing up next month. We have Jones Lang LaSalle board doing a maintenance survey, so we can review our maintenance procedure. This started some time ago. We've been looking for the best way to train our maintenance techs and provide the best service, and also make sure that we've got a good organization there. That maintenance review continues. I think those due outs will be long. Will be somewhat after my watch, but should give insight into our maintenance program. Kirkpatrick Park, our first mixed income community. I and others perhaps were concerned that different income levels living together might have unknown friction points and perceptions that we need to overcome, and maybe neighbors would actually congregate. So we started now over a year ago when we leased up to have social gatherings, and it was a condition of the lease. But now we're in the COVID world, so we're doing it virtually, and it seems to be working pretty well. Kirkpatrick's going quite well. But this virtual resident meeting is one that we've really kind of mastered in the last month, and it's been without giving the last name, you know, we have a dialysis clinic. This is our employee training program. It's our best one. It doesn't do a lot of numbers because there's not a requirement for a lot of numbers to move to the job market. This is our partnership with St. Louis Renal. where they run the dialysis clinic in our site. They do have a preferential lease. We do make a little money on this, but not much. That was never the intent. They hire in a person to be a full-time student for the 18 months to take the patient care technician course. If they don't have a high school diploma, they hire them in at $10 an hour with full medical benefits. So they can focus on getting a diploma and moving to patient care technician. We've only done about 11 or 12 of these rough numbers, but an anecdotal great success story is Jasmine. She just left us, sadly, to get her own house. And so she has moved through the entire process. We started this now about 4 years ago. So she's got the whole process of education, certification, income increasement, gone to minimum rents, partnered with Habitat, and now has her own home. We've covered a lot on CARES Act. And just quickly, we've got $4.4 million on the street. We're getting 22 local nonprofits. Our second allocation, the RFA, is out. We expect responses by the 18th. And I'm pleased to announce that, again, thanks to the nice lady that started this, we're on track to get another $3.2 million in CDBG funds. It's not formal yet. We've got the verbals. I normally would not put this out there, but you never know how much time we're going to have together in the future. So this is tracking well. It's disaster recovery funds, which can be applied in a broad way. On rental assistance, I think the highlight here is we had a shortfall thanks to $5.2 million of additional set-aside application of emergent funds. You see the bullet points up there. Our real program that's taken off and doing much better is our VASH. We really undersubscribed when I got here, and that's become a success to those folks. Under urban development, you're aware of Ryerville. We've had discussions on it. And the budget preparation from SP Plus is underway for our annual budget for the Avenue of the Arts Garage. We've had some real condition changes there. There has been some interest expressed by Metro, and the backstop to our leasing is Metro non-governmental revenues. That was part of the agreements that we went into when they asked us to take this project on. So in practice, you could never not make money here and not be able to pay what is essentially debt service, but it's an lease-back arrangement. Metro would be required by the agreements to fund it. Hopefully we never get there. We're sitting on about $280,000 surplus after debt service right now, projections, which is good. Revenue still comes in. The model for our financial pro forma there was the foundation of monthlies, long-term monthlies with big corporations, Fifth Third, Tony's Guitar is 505 CST. We've also got a software company that's got about 150 spaces. Those alone would carry us, and then the turns of the extra dailies would be our additional profit that we could pocket, and that seems to be holding true. On the Buckshop and Chief for Development.
So Jim, like you said, there is concern, or are there no concerns?
We have concerns from the Metro Finance Director based on the general conditions of the world.
Got it.
We've responded to him with the pro forma, well, not the pro forma, with the budget projections on the variance analysis, where we showed we're tracking right now for the year about $280,000 to the good.
Got it.
So it would take some unusual combination, fully possible, and their budget runs in the calendar year, not the fiscal year. So they come in for a budget approval, which has generally been done at my desk as a component of the overall budget that you approve. They come in with that for approval in the November, December timeframe. We start those discussions about now. Okay. Move on to Chief of Development. I talked about Forest Bend. We have electronic locks going across the agency, about 87% complete. Community Housing Development, townhomes is a CD funding program. We have several of these that are CD funded that the construction shop oversees, make sure that the construction is done in the correct way. 93% there. Jefferson Street Pocket Park, which is rather run down the list. You can see him. Randy Rogers is tracking, doing great over in Germantown. Our new maintenance facilities is about a third complete. The trolley barns is coming up and getting out of the ground over on Rolling Mill Hill. Our supportive housing, which is not our project per se, but we have oversight to make sure it meets the HUD standards. And we are, I think it was Buck that told me to speak to Reno and Kavanaugh. Says, are you ever going to come to us with something that isn't new? So we're going to be one of the first in the country to have somebody else build a project, give it to us, so we put it in public housing, and then follow the process we've already established to move from public housing and its limitations in the financial operating stream to project-based rural assistance to them. All on track, a lot of heavy lifting there to get to the finish line, and we're only in SDs for the supportive housing. At Nance Place some time ago, we had an issue where the locks were compromised by people who live in the street, leading to Webb being concerned about. They managed the property for us. Got the money set aside from Freeman Webb. The pre-con meeting has been held. On WCO, we have a series of CD funds, home funds. We provided them. You see the percentage completions of each of those. We're finishing up with recap, which I kind of collapsed a little bit. And just to preview a little bit where we are on Vision Casey, obviously, George complete. Our CAG resident town hall, we had its virtual meetings since we last met. We've talked about Casey Utility Phase 1. You got a presentation on it today. On the final punch list for Explore School of the playgrounds they requested, they had the students design their own playgrounds, which costs a little bit of money then to go build and a little bit more time to install. That's the last item for Explore School. And I talked to Marcia Edwards just before this meeting. All the due dates for their funding are on track. She's raised the money, and that should be coming in with no hiccups on it. I've been asked that question in the past. On Mosey on 6th, the punch list has been closed out. It's used up. Manning Place for substantial completion. Final completion should be in about 10 days. We're punching the job. We've already started leasing, and it's leasing them very well. Red Oak Flats, which is the one right across from our maintenance facilities at 40%. Townhomes, as I talked in finance, they closed financing about 15%. We was getting notice proceeding the foundations earlier. In Bosco Forest, where we just got the low-income housing tax rate 9%, and you can see just looking out the window, those buildings are coming down. The rest of the locations gone successfully, and that's where the next phase of the vision program. Continue to work with the Kingdom Group, and we hope with a community quarterback in the form of our local big sports team. That work is ongoing. There's really no updates, just the continue. Seems to be. Envision Day Suticum, our centerpiece is the Envision Center, which has rolled into many pieces, but it's got about 18 nonprofit partners. We've also started working with the same firm that does the OPS workforce for an Envision application that allows us to extend the Envision Center's reach to social worker. So it doesn't have to go to tenant files that are caseworker files that are mechanical. We have our second navigator on site, and we're assisting everyone there during COVID-19. And for Envision at Hill, we're in a discussion and long-term work on rezoning and infrastructure to get that through the zoning process in the zone. So that's pretty much the overall approach where we are now. One thing we have been working on for some time, let's pull up OPS so we can get it, the screen. We can get guys to pull that up. So we've got to find a way, in my view, whether I'm here or not, well, I won't be here much longer, but that part won't matter, to have good questions answered in a timely way. And if they're answered in a board setting, they have to be answered in a board setting. So OPS 1, Zach Blair is the point of contact. He will soon be reaching out to however the board wants to do it. We have a straw man stab, I guess this way, our initial thoughts of what Commissioner Screen should entail. It has financials. It has occupancy reports. Now, this has been difficult for us. One, nobody else does this, really. But we've had to grab data from a variety of sources. Getting those data systems to work is taking a lot of time. It's been basic code writing. So our Yardi data now is drawn into any format we want to design for Commissioner Screen. It also has a place for you to give us questions and have us respond from the staff so that we can turn those quicker and track them, and if needed, flag them to be presented to the board. It'll give you as close to a real-time shot as we can in our key areas of tracking performance. That's the intent. It's now live and the numbers are real. I think I actually didn't look at it this morning, so I don't know if there's been a shift, but Zach Blair's been the key architect on it, along with Gus Herder's been very helpful, Buck before him. And we're working directly with the software developer to bring this information. So I only ask the board is if you can discuss amongst yourselves how you want to feed back to us, how we structure this. We can do it any way, but the intent is, the goal is to find a better and more rapid communication tool, board to executive director and staff, so that you wake up in the middle of the night and you want to know something about, well, gee, do they actually, I don't know, do they actually put gas in their vehicles in MDHA? I don't know, I'm making that stuff up. Then you can ask the question, we can quickly respond. We can give you the data. On DBE, here's an example. Good questions on DBE. We got best program in Middle Tennessee, best program in the state. I'm proud of it, but good questions. We can push those out quickly. Pull the data from wherever it is. The data we presented on this, we'll get to the RFIs in a minute, but it comes off the Metro website. So that's the intent. That's the screen. It is a work in progress. Zach Blair will be your point of contact. I'll just ask the board chair. I know this will, we've talked about this a lot. Now it's here.
Right.
And if you can just discuss amongst the board and let me know how you want to handle it. We can provide you the password and the access. We can tailor it. I know that we can tailor it in a lot of ways, and we leave it to the board to let us know how they want to work with it.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Jim. I know this predates my time on the board. I think this has been a work of several years, maybe 5 even, but many years, and a number of chairs and others that have had input. This is my first exposure to the actual dashboard, but I guess
everyone's first
exposure as a whole. First of all, thank you. Thanks to the whole team. This is new to us, but obviously dashboards are something that have been a valuable tool in a number of different areas, and both in state and local government. But it's new to us and new here, and I think for all the reasons you described and perhaps more, it will provide an improvement in the quality of our information sharing and hopefully ultimately in the work. What I was thinking as we move to the end of this process, and with your questions in mind, because you have a few questions within that in terms of presentation, this might be something, given the expectations which precede me, and obviously that we should block out a fairly significant amount of time, actually, maybe in committee, but certainly in the board meeting next month, to hear first from Zach and those that developed it and worked on it, and then from commissioners about what they see and what they don't. It may also be something that individual commissioners over the course of the next month would have an interest in communicating about. My first thought is that, at least initially, all commissioners should see the same thing. I don't know that that's right. I just know that at the moment where there's so many people in the world who, depending on which channel they turn to, see something entirely different and come up with different conclusions, it might not be advantageous for the initial presentation of a dashboard. There ought to be some shared set of data that we all have, so that we all have the same numbers in the same way. From there, the ability to tailor the news feed, to tailor the informational feed is incredibly valuable. That's just your chair's first reaction to something I've never seen in this context before. So what I was going to suggest is, I know there's a fair amount still remaining in item 9 and 10 that we might, and I know there may have been preparation from Mr. Blair and others, but to present, but to do credit to both the developers and the questions, what we might do is think about, certainly we should put this on the agenda of the board next in October. But to not delay anything, there may be an opportunity to put this on the next Finance and Development Committee discussion. I defer to the chairs, but they can think about that. And then for those who have the particular interest right now of diving in.
You're breaking up incredibly.
I'm sorry?
There's still a significant echo coming from the collaboration room from whoever's talking. I think that's Paula. We're just struggling to hear clearly. It's just the nature of the beast today. It is what it is.
I'm sorry. I don't know what else do we have from a technical standpoint. Do you have any other advice?
Not well. I mean, everybody seems to be muted.
Everyone seems to be muted, and the main issue is just being on a phone and a computer at the same time. But Paulette, the answer is the board chair recommends deferring further conversation regarding this to the next meeting, with allowing individual board members and committees to engage to the benefit of the developers and for the presentation next month.
Yes, and if the guy could just speak to that, this is going to be a wonderful tool. It's going to be robust, and people can go and get information. When it comes to their mind, I know a lot of work has gone into this. So thank you to all those people involved. And I do believe it's going to take us a bit of time in work sessions, whether they be through committee or part of a board meeting. It's going to take us some time to really understand it and how to navigate it. And if we can have input into it, so it's going to be a little bit of a marathon and not a sprint, maybe not a whole marathon, maybe a half. But I think it's a tool that's going to be extremely, extremely beneficial to all of us. So thank you to all involved in making this happen, and look forward to moving forward on this.
Well, thank you, Kay, and thank you, Paulette, also for letting us know that the sound is a bit improved. I think Finance and Development will have the next official meeting, and so the formal process will begin there. But in the meantime, any other input that anyone wants to provide, they will. And then Finance and Development may also have a way to get other members to share. And then lastly, Saul Solomon needs to advise us as to the public requirements of this communication process and what is required in terms of sharing with the public a dashboard for an individual commission.
So in the meantime, I'm sorry, excuse me. In the meantime, when we have questions, do we just direct those specific questions about this through Jim to get it to Zach, or how will that work? And can this be emailed electronically just so we can see how it looks right now?
I'll get an email out today, but I recommend we set it up. We go straight to Zach, and I'll let Zach answer for sure. But I'm almost certain we've got you a password or an access and password where you can go onto the OPS system now. That's why I was confident to show it to you. But let me just check with Zach. We'll get an email out today describing how best to tie into it. I think going to Zach directly and having him, he's the staff officer, staff person directly associated with it. He can field the questions, just needs to keep me informed. And okay. So I think that's what we'll do. I just need to check with the vendor and make sure there's, just because I haven't thought about that aspect of it. I think that's the best way to go. And then, and get you an online access, and you can start playing with it.
Great.
Get the feedback to Zach directly, which he'll give to Tom Moore, the software developer.
Perfect. Thank you.
And what I started to say, I'm not sure it was clear, is that prior to that, I think the staff can advise you about what aspects of your inquiries by definition are required to be public records or otherwise publicly accessible. These things have a permanency to them, and so we'll make sure before commissioners engage with the system that they are informed about what aspects of this are shared and and are permanent. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Jim. We are on items 9 and 10. And I think that certainly as to, well, but let's, Jim, you'll take us through 9 and 10, but I think these are just updates. And 10, most of the information I think was provided prior to this meeting, and so it may be that, but
So Matt, can you pull up the retreat there? Is that the retreat list? Work in progress, right? So I think that's on my chart. I apologize for that. I believe it was in your packets, although I'm not certain of that. Friday was a pretty busy day. I'm pretty sure it's in there. The key thing is next month, we intend to provide, which is a big request, is the capital investment plan, which essentially is Envision Casey. A couple of commissioners have mentioned this. It would be useful to roll into it our other potential capital commitments so that you have one fell swoop. That really, once you get past Envision Casey, there's not much left. There's Envision Napier-Suticum, which is the Envision Center, Envision Edge Hill, which is waiting on zoning, and then that's really about it. So, we think we can cover all that. That's the main thing. That's next month. And that's our status. We'll close them out as quickly as we can.
The SEIU piece is relevant. You might just touch that.
I'm sorry, where is SEIU? SEIU MOU is still under negotiation. We tend to bring that back to you in November. I don't have a specific update on the MOU. I know I have a meeting at this meeting.
It occurred to me that might be relevant to the questions that we had earlier in the meeting from SEIU, and would be, I would hope and expect, a part of that response as well. I know Commissioner Coleman and others have asked questions in that regard, and that would be a good time, unless you have them sooner, to answer those comparison questions.
The subject questions, that's where we stand on the closing out from, I think ethics we knocked out today, right? So that's on there somewhere.
Yes.
Yep, there we go. Okay, Matt, pull up the RFI list, please.
Would you make just one request while he's pulling it up? Can you send us a list of all the third-party consulting agreements that we're currently using, that we're going out to third parties? There's one for this. There's one who's going to come in with JLL. There's one who's going to come in and do a strategic review. There's one, I just want to try to get a sense of.
It probably feels more substantial than it is. It probably sounds that way. So we'll get that list, sure.
And the contract amounts, please.
Third-party consulting being different from our architectural IDIQs. So there's another of the RFI list, Matt, please. Okay, so next slide, please. Matt heard me. Matt, can we go to the next one? I hope so.
Looks like it's like an unstable internet.
Here we go. So I don't want to read a slide to anyone, but the first 6 we believe are closed. We got the next 7. We'll go through here. Many of those we think we've answered on the forms, just want to memorialize them. And some of those are partial responses, not complete.
So if I were to look at closed items, number 2.
The 5-year summary is closed. The follow-up questions will cover some of that's number 11. There were follow-up questions from that. So the initial question was, give us a summary. We did that. From that, there were additional questions, which is now number 11. We're going to cover some of those today, and we have some questions from the follow-up they weren't able to complete that will be covered at future meetings. So that one's for October. I had to break out with those ones. They have a pretty extensive email on us for some of these, but we've got to capture them in the meeting since they came up in the meeting.
Okay, so I just want to be specific. When I see something that says closed, what I would assume is you think it's done. I'm just trying to understand what does closed mean. And I just point to number 3. Because the last time we had that meeting, you said, I will send this presentation back out to all of the board commissioners and I will do all those things. that didn't occur. So I'm gonna say, does that actually mean closed?
All right. We'll add that back to the active list.
No, I'm just trying to understand this.
Well, no, we closed on as we thought we'd answered the mail to the board and we were complete, but if not, we will make it out. If you're not complete in your mind, then it's not complete. Am I missing something? Yes, sir.
So I just saw the other list that was in a spreadsheet of things that here's all the things that the board had requested. And this appears to be something similar, but slightly different because some of the topics kind of overlap.
Yeah.
And then I go back and just look at this first thing that says closed. And then on the meeting on number 3, there was a specific request. You said, I will send you this presentation as soon as we finish this meeting. That presentation never came back. And then the second one says there's additional information that we said we would provide. So I would have expected that to still be on the list of things that are still to be done.
Well, we've had some good staff discussion on this. We thought the way to a procedure that may be of value is to provide a written response as part of the board packet and then memorialize it in a presentation here because to answer questions raised in the board meeting at a board. So it's somewhat of a work in progress. I've got to go back and research 3. And I've got Matt tracking this directly because I was tracking this myself initially, but we've got a pretty high volume. So he's doing that now on an ongoing basis. And we'll research 3. But our goal is to give you a write-up. For example, we have one on DB, the one with packets. It doesn't fully answer the question. It answers portions of it, and we've got a list of follow-on questions that come up and we can answer later. And if you get the write-up, and then we touch on it, hopefully it'll also save time in the meeting, is that we've got the write-up, are there additional questions that we can move on? Because today we've got several, I mean, actually.
Yeah, well, let me just say, as a chair, this is working from my perspective, and in this way. By putting these things on the list, it gives us a chance to look and say, I feel I'm comfortable, I'm uncomfortable, I need more, I don't need more. I mean, I think that part is working. And this is the first time this has come in this form. So it's really enabled us to look. And I agree with Commissioner Ansari that in particular, it's a little complicated to have the DBE issue under closed and under open. And so that's just a procedural to get to not have it in both places at once, because you naturally look at the first section and you think, oh, it's closed, but then you remember, no, actually, I don't remember that. And then for us, advantageous to have it enclosed is if one member or more feel it's not closed, then that's an opportunity to raise the issue and to move it. So I think this is a very helpful new presentation of the things that have occurred outside, not through the strategic, through the retreat process, which we began in January. But I think this is valuable. I do think, I certainly agree that as you work through it, it'll get easier and better for us to track and know that we have full answers.
Trying to get better every month. So this was our most recent course, but it's good dialogue, and we will work on it for next time. I think the point, if I'm taken away correctly, is, for example, number 11 needs to be more specific in what that question is. I'm confident we know what the follow-up question is, but we should have phrased it and placed it there and titled it different for that way it would be more familiar to those that are asking. So we have not closed out all of this. We don't think we finished all of the questions on DPE. We answered some at that date on the closed item and some this time. We need to work on that, and we will. Let me go to the next slide, please. We talked about the Envision Center, and this is really related to what we do for residents. We do quite a bit. Resident Opportunities is a Section 3 program, but the Envision Center in Naples-Sucum is our most recent outreach event. By coordinating with a large number of nonprofits, you see the other at the bottom of the slide, and having designated navigators focused on the Napier-Sucum community, and using this as our pilot program to extend throughout the rest of the agency. With our lessons learned from this in adult education, English second language, you see the list of services available. We hope to include those as opportunities for residents and what we do to improve best opportunity and conditions. The Envision Center concept is an outgrowth of the Section 3 program, which has been in HUD for quite some time. And it's one of the things we do report on that we have to provide, we should strive to provide opportunity for our residents. That is a response to a question of what the Envision Center was and what it was an opportunity to provide. Next slide. Peer housing opportunities. How do you compare us with others? Zach Blair did the primary research. There's a write-up in your packet. This will close it out, we hope. These are the ones we think are most alike to us. Quite frankly, MDHA is somewhat of a unicorn in the industry, pretty well known as being unique, and it has several pieces in one. There are very few, we're not sure there's anyone that actually has redevelopment districts and community development and public housing and Section 8 vouchers and project-based rental assistance. Now, if you weren't in this day in and day out, that would seem unusual because HUD controls all those, right? But project-based rental assistance is a very separate program of multifamily designed for private owners. It's only been recently opened up for public housing agencies to do that. In a like way, public housing itself is not able to do development activities generally. So we happen to be a unique organization that has a variety. Versus we're a microcosm of HUD and have essentially a program underneath it plus some add-ons. Those are the comparative tools we used. I believe there was a write-up from Zach on this. On the packet real quick, but we did have a write-up on this that addressed this. So subject to questions on the assessments, I will still be helping about as likely candidates for comparative agencies. Okay, hearing none. On the DBE, and this is in response to how does MDHA's disadvantaged business utilization compare with Metro Nashville, its departments and other independent quasi-governmental agencies in Nashville. For 2018 and 19, we lead the area, Davidson County, Middle Tennessee, with overall 33.74% for disadvantaged business utilization, 18 and 28.47 in 19. That means that 28.47% of our business went to disadvantaged businesses. The next closest to our performance was National Electric Service at 8.29 in 2018, and NES again at 9.7 in 19. We award disadvantaged business contractual work at a rate at least 3 times that of our other agencies in the community. The slides, I think, speak for themselves. They come from the Metro website where we found the best data for comparison. We don't really track ourselves comparing to other agencies. We just try to meet our own goals and possibly exceed them. Second part of this was how do we set our DBU goals and how do we come to them? We use 20% as our goal for my entire tenure. And we base that off of, and we do it for all our RFPs and offers for contract. If you go on the Metro National website today and back when we first looked, there are aspirational goals they have for DBU. Our 20% exceeds or matches, and they're broken in different categories. But our 20%, which is simpler for us, exceeds or meets all the Metro goals, and that's how we chose it. And then how many senior, that's later in the presentation. So that's up on the DBE.
Questions on the DBE?
And this would be, for example, I think would be very useful for the OPS commissioner, a dashboard. Next slide. Procurement contract list. We enclose the large number of the people who contract routinely. Marketplace is the key here. If Buck is on, I don't know if we have Rita on or any of our contracting officers. So Buck, do you have any comments on procurement and the contract list? You touched on it earlier. Caught him off guard. I won't read the slide anymore. We gave you, again, I think a pretty coherent write-up on this. Marketplace is our tool. It's an industry understanding tool for contract management and for outreach to the community. Next slide. Whoop. Go back one, please, Matt. It's to go forward. Sorry, I want to go to the procurement contact list continued slide. There we go. Just to make sure it's seen. We touched on that in the earlier presentation from Bob. Next slide.
So in October, we're going to have the larger DBE presentation.
These are those additional questions. So we answered some last month, some this month. We know we're tracking these. What we've got to do on that tracking list is provide this little specificity on the list so that it's clear to commissioners when closing
Because in the previous presentation on DBE, there were additional categories set out in each of the category areas. And so while this captures an overall, and I presume the other agencies also have the individual categories.
Not all. That would be fine. So we went to the overall presentation, and the only one who does this on a routine basis is Metro. Right. As I said, we don't ask for or track other people. That's not something we do.
Right.
We allow Metro to do it, and then we pull their stats down. And this was what was available that we could find, comparing us to other agencies in this area.
I would say if you could probably with this, you can ask.
We'll ask, and we'll work with Metro.
Just Metro Finance. You should send them this chart, and have them help you with it, because and certainly the airport, others anyway, they can help you with it. And Talia Lomax O'Neill, former finance director, is particularly knowledgeable in the space, and I think that would make it easier.
So these are the additional questions that we're tracking. And again, I think as you discuss what goes on your dashboard, this will be something. Our next one is updated org chart. This presentation. We also sent out an email that had a list of these different tiers. We didn't do this presentation, though we probably could have, I think, but because we were trying to get this brief enough to get through it. But this is a track of this. I think everyone received this by email, so it should have laid out where we stand across the agency. In essence, we're too deep in talent at every position, and every position has a successor plan and a very talented group that can help should someone depart for any reason. Next slide on demographics. I think again, we present this by email. We want to memorialize it here as the board, make sure it's part of the record. And then for overall employee demographics, next slide. Again, I believe, I'm certain sent this by email, but I want to memorialize it as part of the public record. And one that was not out yet, I think, I have to ask Zach. This is Zach Blair's. Next slide, please, on from Commissioner Bowers on what we do on tenant selection and our screening procedures. These are set by HUD, which we follow precisely. And we get as much wiggle room and try to be kind as far as we can, but we have to stay within the HUD rules. Zach, do you have any comments? Zach Blair, I hope you're on. Do you have any comments on this? You're the one that did, especially so Zach Blair, by background, is an attorney, was the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Officer for the Southeast region. So he's intimately familiar with these type of issues. And this is his intellectual work, not mine. So he's best served to answer any questions. So Zach, are you on? Hope so. I hope the slide is self-explanatory.
I've seen it there.
Zach, you're on mute. Are you available?
Thanks. Forgot to hit that mute button. That's yeah. I'm an expert in fair housing law, but apparently not how to use computers. The slides there are a summary of an information paper that I prepared and Mr. Harbison signed off on. If you guys have any specific questions on it, I'm happy to answer them. But in short, HUD revised in recent years its guidance relating to criminal convictions and arrest records under the Fair Housing Act and also under public housing and across all HUD regulations. And the paper basically summarizes where our policy is in line with, or where our procedures are. Our written procedures for rental assistance and affordable housing are in line with the most recent HUD guidance on this issue. And we reviewed it this year. And if you guys have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, Zach, this is Kay Bowers. So I'm coming from the perspective of housing those that are the most difficult to house, particularly homeless or formerly homeless coming off the street. And then looking forward to if and when this comes about, I suppose it will, the new homeless services and housing initiative, where MDHA or Jim has been in discussions about taking that over and running that. I know just from my work with colleagues in this space that's a real concern for them. That and I read letter to letter what was sent out. It's very good. It's very detailed. But I just want to make that point. And maybe you have experience in that space and could address that concern. Because I've faced it also in my work with the agency that I worked with before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I understand correctly, you're referring not just to individuals experiencing homelessness, but in particular to individuals that are also re-entering society from incarceration. Is that correct?
From incarceration and that people experiencing homelessness. We know that if they don't have mental health challenges, when they become homeless, that studies show that within 6 weeks they do. And then it just gets worse the longer they're on the street. and they get in trouble with law enforcement. So I'm just thinking about, well, what are those barriers and how are the regulations that the agency utilizes accommodating for those, or can they? I'm just looking down the pike at the future.
Yeah, and the our written procedures and the HUD guidance, better yet, is written with the understanding that although individuals who have criminal convictions are not in and of themselves a protected class, it disparately impacts minority populations, which is why it would be covered under the Fair Housing Act. So it's the guidance was written based upon a disparate impact standard where you have a protected class that is disproportionately negatively impacted by a procedure or policy, and so what our procedures are designed to do is to balance out various factors by looking at the amount of time that's occurred since the conviction, the severity of the crime, and whether or not there's been any sort of extenuating circumstances which would mitigate any concerns with providing housing to that individual or one of their households. Mitigating circumstances such as whether or not they've participated in some sort of drug or alcohol rehab program or have shown other efforts to do that. The HUD guidance really is only not accommodating when it comes to two specific types of criminal convictions, which is there in the memorandum. and other than that, it really is contingent on the housing authority to make sure that they have properly struck a balance when considering the safety or the risk that an individual may pose versus making sure that you're not excluding them from having the opportunity to have housing. Without going line by line through our written procedures, I think you'll see that there is a certain time frame for certain types of convictions, and for other criminal convictions, the time frame is when it comes to crimes that are not really severe, dealing with me that may indicate a significant risk of violence or reoccurrence of crime, then it's a relatively short time frame of 1 to 2 years that our procedures limit them from applying for housing in either the rental assistance or the property management program.
Thank you.
Zach, one thing that came up before when we were talking about project-based rental assistance contract recently was whether we should be kind of requiring the same kind of selection criteria to ensure that we aren't seeing disparate impact by others who are using the BRA contract. And so that's something that I think we've requested staff contemplate and comes back to us at a certain point. And I just wanted to flag that again. Not that we should do that necessarily right now, but thinking about how can we promote access and equitable access to people who are in disadvantaged classes or protected classes in our other housing.
Yeah, I think that's a very important issue. I'm happy to look further into that. So was there a specific question related to that?
No, I just hope that you can consider it and bring back a proposal, or if you're thinking on the matter at a later date.
Okay. Yeah, I'm certainly happy to do that, and that's something that we can come back to you on.
Any other questions on this or the other information? I note that a number of them will come back next month, and we'll pick up there. I note as well we have committee meetings that will be ongoing during the course of this month. I want to celebrate the fact that we have passed the budget through the board. I want to thank our executive director and the whole team here. I know this started earlier and perhaps finished somewhat earlier than ever before. Certainly it started earlier, and it is a test of an agency and the success of its leadership. The budget is passed unanimously through a board with the comfort that we had today. So on the budget, on the other items that were before us, as well as the work we have ahead, thanks not just of me, but I think of all of us here. Again, we are going to begin a period of celebration. Paulette is going to lead us as we think about that going forward in October, November, and perhaps in December. There should be, though the world is in a difficult place, there are still plenty of things to celebrate. And we started with a celebration from HUD, and we'll have other celebrations ahead. Is there any other business to come before the?
I just have a quick request. If Jim or Matt would send out the written report that you spoke from, just so I can have it for my records. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bowers.
And this is Paulette.
Paulette. Go ahead.
I have two questions. And I'm sorry I didn't ask it earlier. Back to Ms. Hines, is there any possibility of getting reimbursed from Metro Nashville Police Department for those expenses that we were incurring?
Well, I met with the interim chief last week. I didn't bring it up with him. The total expense for the repair of the door was in the range of $600 to $800.
I'm talking about the relocation and all of those other things as
no,
everything related to it. There may not be an answer. I'm just curious if that's a possibility. And
there's probably a larger question there of Metro support, national support to this. We haven't explored it. Maybe in our weekly call or bi-weekly call with the chief of staff of the city, we could bring that up. I'll leave it to the commission. I'll leave the commission on that. We have sufficient resource to cover this. They are similar to what we've done in one or two cases where we had someone that was moving. It was at Casey and needed to move for risk reasons. And so it's sort of been what we've done in the past, and we have sufficient resource to cover the entire package. But certainly something we can broach with Metro Nashville and see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, I was just curious since they caused the problem. And the second has to do with the celebration. Since I can't talk to members of the commission, how are we supposed to plan it, or am I supposed to do something and present it to the commission?
Well, Commissioner, that is a big question. And I would start with Saul Solomon, our lawyer. And then I would use Saul to support and to communicate. You can certainly communicate with Jim and senior staff here, who I know will be thinking about how the agency would like to respond. And I think that's primarily the way it would go. If there are things, and then as you have ideas and then we can make sure we find a publicly noticed meeting for you to share and for us to have input. So we can do it at the Development Finance Committee meeting. We can do it at any other meeting that we like. But I think I'd start with Saul and through him access senior staff that can help us think about it. I know you'll want to ask Jim Harbison, but you should have his input, but I'm going to now just foresee that he will be in his normal modest way, someone who says that it's not, I start with the staff so that we get the most robust response.
Sure.
That should happen.
And the other thing is, does it have to happen before December 3rd? Do we have any kind of time frame or suggested date? And is there a budget?
Well,
we have sufficient resources to cover.
I think I will. That's a good question, and I'm sure that it was not in any budget category anticipated for this fiscal year, and it was not in the budget that we passed explicitly. But
I understand.
Those are very good questions, and we will. Mr. Solomon will make sure that we direct that to senior staff as well, so they can have some answer. I don't think there's any particular timeline. It's whatever works.
Okay.
I think November probably would be a good time if it's a time of Thanksgiving. It's a time of renewal, and but it's in your hands, Paulette.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Is there any additional business to come before the MDHA Board of Commissioners? They're seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. Is there any discussion? This is on the motion to adjourn. Are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Aye.